Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So before I try to speak something on these verses, I'd like to request the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas. I feel embarrassed to be sitting on the Vyasasan in front of so many prestigious devotees and spiritual seekers. But for my own purification, I'll try to say something. So this is a section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is establishing Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but also particularly going deeper into the science of God and his various forms and expansions and energies, and how those all manifest and how they all manifest and expand. He's making this statement that Krishna, the form of Krishna as we see here before us on the altar in the center where you have Radha and Krishna, or Krishna Balaram on the right side. He's making the statement, or the pronouncement, that Krishna is the original form of God. God has many different forms. We hear also that there are many different names of God, and also different names of God are known in different parts of the world as well. We are chanting Krishna and Rama every day here, and there's also names such as Allah or Yahweh or Jehovah, and all of the names of God have just as much potency as God himself. And we hear in the Vedas there's the form of the Lord as Vishnu, the Vishnu avatars who maintain the universe. There's the form of the Lord as a tortoise. There's the form of the Lord as Lord Ramachandra, who comes as a very dutiful king. We see him with his green complexion and his bow and arrow. And so there are many forms of God, and they're all equal. They're all one same supreme person. As Prabhupada would say, there can't be two gods otherwise. There can't be two supreme gods or supreme beings otherwise. They'd be in competition with one another, and one of them must end up not actually being supreme. So, although God has many forms, many different expansions, he's only one. However, the statement being made in the Chaitanya Charitamrita here is that there is nevertheless an original form from whom all the other forms expand and emanate. And that is being said to be Krishna here. And in this section, Krishnadas Kaviraj has very conclusively been able to demonstrate through citing the Srimad Bhagavatam that this is not his own suggestion, not his own personal suggestion, or that it's anybody's imagined idea, but actually in the Bhagavad Purana, the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is revealed scripture from Krishna himself, from the Supreme himself, Lord Brahma is stating very clearly, Narayanongam Narabu Jalayanat, that that this Narayana, the Supreme Lord, the Lord of Vaikuntha, the Lord of the spiritual world, he is actually your plenary portion. He's speaking to Krishna, he's your plenary portion. He's expanded from you. And he is one of Krishna's vilas expansions. Vilas means an expansion for performing pastimes, for performing transcendental activities. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that this verse is actually giving the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam. the truth indicated in this verse, text 30, spoken by Brahma, is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. And so this conclusion that Krishna is the original form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so important. It's considered the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so this is proven through the scriptures, through the revealed scripture, revealed transcendental sound vibration. And there's a verse earlier on, much earlier on in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which you all know well, where Suta Goswami very clearly states that Krishna is the original form of God. In the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Suta Goswami describes, he gives a list of incarnations of God. And it's not a fully exhaustive list because there are so many incarnations of God we wouldn't be able to count. But it's a good summary list. And as he's mentioning the many avatars, Matsya avatar, Kurma avatar, he mentions Krishna and Balaram also as avatars. And then he continues to mention other avatars. But after mentioning them, from that point forward, he realizes there's something a little bit awkward about the description that he's giving, which is that although Suta Goswami himself knows that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, he's just mentioned them in a list of avatars as though they're simply one of the many avatars of Vishnu. So as he goes about this list, he realizes, oh no, this sounds a little bit awkward. Some persons might misunderstand and think and not understand. So he becomes a little apprehensive. So as soon as he finishes his list of these avatars, he immediately makes one addendum in order to clarify the understanding of all the listeners. He says, Ete cham sakala pumsam Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. He said, I've just mentioned so many amshas, so many expansions and incarnations of the Lord, but we should know that Krishna is actually the origin of all of these expansions. He's the original person of Godhead. So he makes that clear pronouncement as a clarification. And so that makes it quite clear that through these scriptures, scriptural evidence, that's established. But also, beyond hearing from the scripture and just knowing conclusively through those pronouncements that this is the fact, actually it's very logical that Krishna, among all the manifestations of God, is the original. And I was, one year for Krishna Janmashtami, I was at the Bhakti Center in New York, and His Holiness Dhanurdhar Maharaj gave a talk that evening on the occasion of Krishna's appearance in this world. And he began his class with the thesis, or with the proposal that it is perfectly logical that God is a young cowherd boy who plays a flute and wears a peacock feather on his head and has a bluish complexion. He said, actually, it's perfectly logical. And I appreciated his talk very much, so I've taken some of the points from that. And it's related to today's talk also, that he's the original form also. So I'll share some of that in this class. And I'd like to start in demonstrating how perfectly logical that Krishna is the original form. I'd like to start with this story of a German man. And this German man would later on come to be one of the disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who of course is a spiritual master of our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. And this young German man, he was a sincere spiritual seeker, and he went to India to try and understand God. And he visited many temples of Vishnu in many of his various different forms. And so of course he goes into the temple, he sees Vishnu with holding in one hand a lotus, and in another hand a disc, which is as we know, a very effective weapon that Vishnu sometimes employs. And he has a conch in one hand, and then in another hand he's got a club. And he goes into various temples, maybe a Lord Nrsingadev temple, where he's holding in many hands many different weapons, perhaps the temple of Lord Ramachandra, where he has his bow and arrow. And he visits these many temples, and he's impressed by what he sees, but something in him tells him he should keep looking, keep searching. And he comes across a temple, he visits the temple of Radha and Krishna one day. And when he goes in, he sees Krishna in his, what we call the threefold bending form. It's a very, I would say it strikes me as a very kind of relaxed and almost even casual form, would you say? When you look at Krishna, or if you look at Krishna and Balaram, standing in a way that seems somewhat relaxed and casual. They don't look like they're up to any hard work or anything like that. So they just look very relaxed. And he saw that Krishna, on his forehead, he had this beautiful peacock feather decorating him. And he saw that in his hands, he was simply holding a flute that he might be playing. And as soon as he saw this, he said to himself, "Now this is God. This is God. This must be God in his original form." And his logic behind that is that if you look at any business, especially a large business, a big enterprise, maybe multi-million-dollar enterprise, you'll find perhaps they've got a big skyscraper filled with people who are working very hard. And if you go a little higher up on the chain of workers, you'll find executives who have maybe a much nicer standard of living than those who are working on the ground floor. But nevertheless, they're working very hard. And if you go up a little bit more, you'll find at the top of the chain of command almost, the CEO. And of course, CEOs tend to be very well known, have a lot of fame in the world, and they enjoy a great deal of benefits from their position, probably some of the nicest penthouse locations and cars and vacation spots. But although they enjoy a great deal of prestige and luxury, CEOs are also working very, very hard, and they have to be worried about making some misstep that could have them booted out of their position at any moment. But if you go higher than that, you'll find the person who originally founded that company or that enterprise and is the owner. And what are they doing? Well, generally they might be going out to play some golf with friends. They might be going out on their yacht, having a nice time with friends and family members, and practically spending maybe 98% of their time just kicking back and enjoying life. And so this German seeker, he saw that that's the real boss, actually, at the top of the chain. Nothing to do except enjoy, nothing to do except play. And so this is how he related that, yes, here's Krishna. He's got no weapons in his hand. His body language doesn't read that he's got some task to perform. He's simply in a mood of play. Therefore he deduced that this must be God. And when I was visiting a temple one time, I met a devotee. I made friends with a devotee who had started a business himself. And he told me how he worked so hard for years. He said especially there were 4 years where he had to work so hard. He was really breaking his back to keep this business together, keep it running, organize everything. It was such a challenge. But then at the end of those 4 years, he had developed it to such a point that he could kind of step back and it would just keep running by the structure that he had put in place. And everything was running nicely. And now at this point in his life, he practically just needs to give just a few hours of input to this business per week in order to keep it going. And yet the money from that business is simply rolling in. So this is the top boss, the topmost boss. got nothing to do. And so now this devotee, he simply travels around and distributes books in various parts of the world because that's his passion, that's what he wants to do. And so this German seeker could relate that this must be God in his topmost manifestation. And so this is one way that we can understand it. It's perfectly logical that the topmost manifestation of God would be simply living in Vrindavan, this very sweet rural atmosphere, having loving exchanges with his friends, with his family members, and although all his expansions are managing and taking care of the universe and in various kinds of ways, all the various universes and of course the spiritual Vaikuntha planets as well, Krishna is simply absorbed in loving exchanges with his devotees in Vrindavan. And another example that Dhanudhar Maharaj gave in this talk was relating to how actually you can recognize the original form of God because it must be that form which is the most full in two aspects of God. One of these two aspects is the Aishwarya of God, which means the opulence. We know that Krishna, the name Bhagavan, means one who possesses all opulences, all wealth, all beauty, all fame, all strength. And so this is the Aishwarya, the opulence of God, the power, the wealth, the strength of God. And then the other aspect is known as Madhurya in Sanskrit, which is often translated as sweetness. This is the personal, you could even say almost human side of God, where he's exchanging with devotees in various kinds of loving relationships. As a servant, some devotees relate to him as a friend, some of his devotees relate to him even as his mother and father, and some even relate to him as lovers. And so Maharaj was saying in this class that form of God which is the most full in both of these aspects, when you find that form, then you can recognize this is the original form of God. And Maharaj gave a very interesting example. He gave the example of a former US president named Bill Clinton. At the time that Bill Clinton was president, well, of course, the position of president is a very formal, very important formal position. And if you go to the White House in the United States, into the Oval Office, you'll see the president in a suit and tie, having many different kinds of formal discussions and business meetings and meetings about economic policies. And there's a great deal of formality in the exchanges there. So this is what it means to be president. But one time, Maharaj was reading an article where Bill Clinton took a visit to Harlem, which is a particular neighborhood in New York. And if you're not familiar with Harlem, this is a place, it's a traditionally African-American neighborhood in New York City, in Manhattan, which is known for its music and culture. Gangster.
It's a gangster neighborhood.
Gangster neighborhood. It's also a neighborhood that's well known for jazz. Many famous jazz musicians have hailed from there or became famous there. So there's this whole music scene, cultural scene. There's lots of color and life and saxophone and trumpet and everything, and jazz piano. And Bill Clinton, in this article, he had visited Harlem, and instead of wearing this suit and tie, he was wearing blue jeans, and he was wearing a simple casual button-down t-shirt. And actually, he joined with some musicians, and he had a saxophone in his hand, and he was playing the saxophone along with them, having a little jam session with them. And because this is actually something, a passion that Bill Clinton has had, since he was young, for jazz. And Maharaj is making the point that only in Harlem is this President Clinton, able to just put on some blue jeans, grab a saxophone, and just have a casual jam session with his saxophone, with the local musicians, and just kind of be relaxed and let loose like this. He can't behave like this in the Oval Office. He can't go into a meeting with jeans and a saxophone and just kind of casually rubbing shoulders. So you could say in one sense that in the Oval Office he's restricted into how much of his personality he can actually manifest. He can't manifest that Madhurya personal side. But when he goes to Harlem, it's the right mood, it's the atmosphere that permits it. That's when, in one sense, he's in his original form. It's his full and complete form is manifesting there. So in the same way, Krishna, in his manifestation in Vrindavan, he's able to relate with his devotees in a very personal, very sweet, intimate way where he's revealing himself. It's him in his most at home. It's basically God at home. And to give a few examples of that, for example, some of the devotees in Vrindavan, they relate with Krishna as a servant. So there's one servant who may help Krishna when he's going out the door in the morning, help him to make sure his belt is tied and his shoelaces are tied. And as the servant is, helping Krishna prepare in this way, Krishna takes his flute and he bops him on the head while he's trying to focus on, his service. And then, gets a little distracted, goes back to his service, again he's bopped on the head. And there's a sweet kind of humorous exchange going on there. And in the Vaikuntha planets, Lord Narayan he doesn't relate to his servants in that kind of an intimate way, in that kind of an informal way. And Krishna also has friends in Vrindavan, those who relate to him and serve him in a mood of friendship. And they'll be sitting together, having lunch on the grass, and one of his friends will say, "Oh Krishna, I have a very nice sweet for you." "Oh, you have a sweet? Let me see." No, you just close your eyes, open your mouth. Trust me, I'll give you a very nice sweet." So Krishna closes his eyes, opens his mouth, and his friend picks a flower and pops the flower into Krishna's mouth. "Oh, what is this?" And then they're laughing and they're enjoying this exchange. And although in the Vaikuntha Lokas, some of Lord Narayan's servants may have a friendly attitude towards him, Lord Narayan, he doesn't relate to his friends in this way, in this kind of informal way. When Gopakumara made his way up in the course of his spiritual quest to Vaikuntha Loka, and he saw Lord Narayan in person for the first time, having a mood of friendship towards the Lord, he immediately he ran up to him to embrace him. But as soon as he came even slightly close, he was blocked by Lord Narayan's guards, who stopped him and held him back and said, "You can't do that. You can't approach the Lord like that. You can't go up and give him a hug." So this expression of the Madhurya aspect of God is, we could say, in a sense, suppressed to a certain extent in the realm of Lord Narayan. And going up to the next relationship that Krishna's devotees may have with him, the parental relationship. Mother Yashoda is taking care of Krishna in so many ways, as though he's a dependent young boy, and before he goes off to herd the cows with his cowherd boyfriends, she says, "Oh, hold on, I just need to adjust your collar real quick. Come back, I need to adjust your collar." Okay. And then Krishna tries to leave, and she says, "Oh, no, wait, there's some smudge on your face. Come back here, let me get that smudge off." Okay. And then, no, wait, come here. I have one last little sweet that I want to give you before you go. So Krishna comes back, sits down, has his sweet. And although Krishna, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's not under anybody's control, but he actually takes pleasure in being under the control of a devotee who takes the position of his mother or father. Although in the material world many people are addressing the Lord as "Oh my dear father, oh my dear father," and addressing him in a dependent mood, Krishna actually takes greater pleasure when a devotee takes the higher position and chastises him as a small boy for having eaten dirt or something similar. And there are also devotees of Krishna who have a mood of being in a conjugal relationship. They're in the mood of lovers of Krishna. And Krishna reciprocates with such devotees by dancing with them in the forest at night. And during this rasa dance, it's described that after the participants, the cowherd girls, from so much dancing, have become very heated. They've become quite exhausted and they're sweating. Krishna puts his hand across their forehead, and there's a very cooling sensation as Krishna's hand wipes their forehead and their cheek. Now this is not a relationship that Lord Narayan has with any of his devotees. So then, if we approach this search for the original form of God with this criteria, that he must manifest opulence in the highest degree, and he must manifest madhurya, or personal sweetness, in the highest degree, then observing all the forms of God described in any of the scriptures, we must come to the conclusion that Krishna logically is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is manifesting the qualities of God in full. And actually one might say, okay, well that demonstrates how Krishna has the highest madhurya, but how does Krishna have the highest aishwarya, opulence? Because we see that the mood there is not very much this awe and reverence, or Krishna's dressing up as an opulent king or anything like that. But actually the manifestation of opulence in Krishna and in his abode of Vrindavan is full, actually. The abode of Vrindavan is said to be entirely composed of chintamani, transcendental gems. And although it's a very sweet rural mood in Vrindavan, it's not a majestic royal mood, but actually there's so much opulence in Vrindavan, with jewels and palaces, and and Krishna, in his earthly Vrindavan pastimes, if a demon appears, Krishna manifests his opulence to defeat those demons. But the thing is that when he manifests these opulences, even then, in Vrindavan, the degree of sweetness is so great that it eclipses the devotee's perception of this opulence, even though it's actually there manifest in full. So then, still we have to conclude that Krishna, being the most full in all opulence and in madhurya, that he's the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what does this mean for us? Well, Krishna is described in the scriptures as Rasovai Saha, that he is rasa. Rasa is that pleasing taste that everyone is looking for in any kind of interaction or relationship that we have in the material world. Whether I'm looking for happiness through a relationship with a friend or a lover, or I'm looking for happiness through a nice trek in the wilderness, or I'm looking to happiness through a nice slice of pizza or lasagna. It's rasa that we're actually looking for, it's this pleasing taste. And Krishna actually is the original reservoir of this rasa. He is rasa. He is that pleasing taste that we're looking for in all of our relationships and endeavors in the material world. And so what this reality we've been hearing about means for us, the relevance it has in our everyday lives, is that with this knowledge we can be content to fully give up futile endeavors to pillage and plunder our way to happiness through the exploitation of the material elements of this world, and just feel fully confident that we can completely surrender to Krishna, and that our every need and want for this experience of satisfaction and fulfillment of happiness will automatically be satisfied, even without our having to ask for it, or even without our having to worry about it, or even want it. Yes. So we can feel full confidence that the process that Lord Chaitanya came to give, which is the ultimate means to attaining this essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam we've been hearing about. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that the chanting of the holy names of Krishna is the perfect and ideal way and path of spiritual realization, especially in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy known as Kali Yuga that we're currently in. But even in any age, the chanting of the holy names, and particularly through this Maha Mantra that descends from the spiritual world and is carefully given to us, passed down through a line of teachers who have preserved and kept the vibration going for millennia, just to hand it down to us so that we can continue to benefit from it and continue to pass it along to others. To this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the simplest and most sublime path to spiritual realization. And all the treasures of the spiritual world will be opened to anybody who takes sincerely to this path, and in a mood of pure devotion, of not wanting anything for myself, but simply wanting to give pleasure to Krishna. Krishna is the source of everything. He's the source of all living entities. And we are naturally, constitutionally his servant. Every single one of us can never feel satisfaction trying to be the master of anything. I'm sure anybody who's tried to control their way through the material world has noticed it's a little bit difficult. And actually when you try to control things, they tend to just end up controlling you back and bringing frustration and disappointment. So this is one of the many telltale signs that we're not actually meant constitutionally to take up this position of, you know what, I'm going to control the situation, and I'm gonna make my way through this world in a way that I can enjoy to the maximum. This doesn't work for us. But as soon as we take that humble position, realizing that my nature is to be a servant, in every capacity of life I've always been serving. Even a president or a great statesman, a government representative, is able to get elected on the platform of claiming that I'm a public servant. And although they may enjoy some prestige or position through that position, they have to maintain their position of servant, of serving the people, otherwise they'll get booted out just as quick. And a mother is serving their children, teachers are serving the students have to serve the teachers, the citizens must serve the government, otherwise there are consequences. Government members have to serve the citizens, otherwise there's consequences. So actually in every stage of life we're always serving, and this is our nature. And as soon as we embrace that nature and adopt this mood, nothing for me, everything for Krishna, then automatically we attain satisfaction. And by the chanting of Hare Krishna, we can progressively clear away all the dust that is in the heart, Chaito Darpana Marjana, and reveal that pure nature. And we can come to understand who I actually am and what is my relationship with Krishna. How can I serve Krishna and please him? In what capacity? As a servant, as a friend, as a parental figure, or as a lover? This is all revealed simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna and seeking to the best of one's ability to perform devotional service without personal motivation. That's the hallmark of sincerity, is just to not have a hidden motive somewhere. Okay, so thank you for kindly tolerating me trying to say something. I hope that it was in some capacity enlightening or purifying. Now I'll go ahead and open it up for any comments or questions or corrections that anybody might have. Please feel free. Yes, Shamasundar Prabhu?
In the presentation, there were a number of powerful words like conclusive truth, and you also said logical, but it seems that people have missed it. We only have 20 people here. There's a lot of people in France who haven't wrote the logical, conclusive truth. Can you explain that?
Let's see. Well, there is one verse in the Bhagavad Gita that came to mind. So I'll go ahead and start there, because I'm not like a scholar who knows all the different shastras. So if even one verse somehow pops into my head, I feel very fortunate. So I'll just go off of that and see if that might be at least a partial answer to the question. So I don't know the Sanskrit to this verse, but there is a verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna, he describes that in this material world, everybody is acting under the three modes of material nature. And actually they're acting helplessly, he says, because everybody has to do something at every moment. Nobody can just be inactive. We're impelled to act. We're pushed by these three modes of material nature, and our various mentalities and understandings are also impelled by these three modes of material natures. So Krishna says, everybody in this world, they're under the grip of these three modes. They're in the grip. They're submerged. They're under these three modes. They're absorbed in them. They're steeped in them, saturated in these three modes of material nature. Although we always maintain our pure spiritual identity, and we're not actually changed in any way by contact with matter, but we're influenced. The jiva is easily influenceable. That's one of the effects of being a small living entity. Whereas Krishna, as the supreme living entity, is never touched by the modes of material nature. He never comes under illusion. The small living entities, who are his parts and parcels, they have this tendency to be able to come under the influence of the three modes of material nature and illusion, become an illusion. So Krishna says in this verse, everybody in this world is under the three modes, but I'm above the three modes. I'm above those modes, I'm beyond them, and therefore they cannot see me. So this gives me in my head the image of, imagine if you're swimming in a lake. As soon as you go into the water, then you can't see anything that's up above. And I've noticed it's kind of a cliche in some movies that, especially if it's a horror movie, kind of a scary movie, where at every step they're trying to build some tension and suspense and make you think that something scary is about to happen. You'll often have in horror movies, somebody's swimming in the water and they're just kind of underneath the water. They're at a pool, they're at their local YMCA pool, or they might be at their home or something and they're swimming. And they're under the water swimming, and then they come up And as soon as they thought they were alone, because when they originally got into the pool, they were alone. But then as soon as they come up, they suddenly see somebody's feet on the edge of the pool, and they're like, ah! And then usually it just ends up being their friend or something. But the idea is that because they were under the surface of the water, they weren't aware of what was going on up top. So they didn't notice that somebody entered into the gym or whatever. So it's like that. Being under the three modes of material nature is like that. Krishna's above them. So when you're in the three modes, you can't see him, you can't perceive him. And in the modern age especially, people are very fond of this idea that I'll only believe it if I can see it. Anything that's true, I should be able to see it directly, immediately, right now, with my eyes. And if I can't, I won't accept it as truth. And so, being in these three modes, he's on the outside of the pool of the three modes of material nature. So he can't perceive them. So, like, okay, you want to see Krishna, we can show him to you, but you have to pop your head up above water, above the water of the three modes of material nature. And so that requires a process of purification to get extricated from those three modes of material nature that we've been entangled in for so many lifetimes. So although there may be people in the material world who have dedicated their whole life to pursuits of knowledge and maybe did rigorous scientific studies and masters and PhDs to become very, let's say, accomplished in the field of empirical knowledge. And so they've dedicated their lives in one sense to truth, dedicated their lives to knowledge, but because they, by that process, can't come above the three modes of material nature, they're just trying to perceive Krishna through the eyes. And so Prabhupada would frequently say, you want to see God? Okay, you need to develop the eyes to see God. And so that's through this process of purification of Krishna consciousness. So that's one thing that I can say about it. I don't know if that's a complete one.
Thank you. Nice.
Reply. But do you have something that you'd like to say?
Nice.
Okay. It's 9:02. Maybe if there's one last comment or question, we could do that, or we could end here. So anybody have anything? Christopher, Prabhu?
Did you learn public speaking at school?
Maybe we can answer that question after class.
Because it was very nice.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantharaj Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai.